All right. What's up, guys? It's Kyle, also known as Panda Man, with another episode of Unlocking Your Inner Strength. Here with my good friend Joe Riggio of Varsity House. Joe, thanks for being with me.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, we've been talking about this idea for a little bit, me and Joe, as far as talking about conspiracies, whether that's in fitness or in life. It's fun when you get together with somebody else that has similar, at least an open mind, right?
I
An
think
open mind.
every time we're at a mastermind together, we see each other, like our conversation, we always talk about business a little bit. We always talk about training a little bit. Then somehow we always gravitate towards like some of the, food conspiracies, education, paint in the sky,
Yeah.
spraying in the skies
Yeah.
and stuff like
Controlling
that.
the weather.
But, I've always been into that stuff, and I think like my family has like a weird attraction to Halloween horror movies.
So do I. That's funny. So do I.
Yeah. Like
That's interesting.
my family goes all out for Halloween every year. My mom's dressed up like a witch since I was born. Like it's just kind of a thing. They always decorated their house like crazy, and I think like just some of that stuff. I don't know. They seem to go hand in hand. Like,
They do.
They seem to go hand in hand.
Dude, they do. It's funny you said that, man. Halloween, John Carpenter.
Yes.
Like my favorite movie, favorite time of year. Even his music, like I would listen to the theme song over and over.
Yes.
And she puts me into the state, and I'm like, that guy was genius, producing and making the music. And if you look at like even the regular Halloween, my kids, so maybe I shouldn't be showing out, but I love Halloween. So they've seen like the Rob Zombie one, which is gory.
Yep.
And the old one. And I say, guys, which one is scarier? They're like, the old one.
Oh, the
There's
old
no
one's
blood
way
in it.
scary.
There's no blood.
There's no blood.
Yeah.
It's just that was the first like suspenseful slasher movie where the guy didn't talk at all.
Yes.
There was no like character development. His character was just this stoic,
Yes.
like, faceless killer. Right. And that movie's terrifying still to this day. Like I watched that with my wife
Around Halloween, probably.
a couple of Halloweens ago, and she was like, "That's still one of the scariest movies ever." They don't make movies like that because now it has to go to like a lot of, like you said, like a lot of the gore and things like that. Blood everywhere, guts everywhere, like Saw movies and stuff like that. Like they're super gory. The first one was good though.
First one was good.
First one was really
good. They
good.
started getting a little gory.
Yeah.
I remember the first one I saw that with my grandfather. We used to go to movies all the time, but we didn't really know what we were going to see. We'd heard about it, but that was a cool movie, cool twist.
So what are some of the natural progressions then of conspiracy theorism? If like we were going to start a school and have like a prerequisites, right?
What you might have to believe in?
Yeah, like what are some of the prerequisites that you need to be like there's like, and maybe there's different levels, like because you got like you could be like a class A like warlock.
Yes, yeah.
Conspiracy
theorist.
Yeah. Where you got like full blown like basement, like lockdown
Everything.
basement and everything. Yeah, like prepper basement.
You go all the
like,
way.
Yeah. So
I think the baseline ones, Bigfoot, obviously.
Bigfoot, obviously.
Right, like that. You have that.
Aliens, Bigfoot.
Aliens, which I got different theories on that, but being open to the concept. Aliens, Bigfoot, like the JFK assassination.
Oh, for sure. Government conspiracy.
Yeah, the false flags.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, to me, the moon landing.
Oh, for sure.
But I feel like once you get to the moon landing, that's where, like I was telling you at the mastermind, some of the guys were, what else do you think? I'm like, I can't tell you. Because it goes too deep, and then you're just going to think it's just too weird.
If you're like a level 1 warlock, you won't even understand it.
It's going to shut you off.
Right.
Let you progress by yourself.
Right. You got to find your own
plant
path.
the seed.
Yeah.
Right? Like, dude, but it has served me, I'm telling you. Having that type of mindset, like going back to the COVID situation, remember when we opened and all that?
Sure.
It was because I just knew the narrative wasn't true.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't. Like before it even started, I was following that since like November, my gut, but having that open mind to believe in like, okay, maybe what we're being told is not the truth. So that's where I always start. And I teach my boys, I'm like, guys, whatever, because they're teachers, teach them stuff that's mainstream education. And I'll be like, guys, that's not true. I said, your teacher's not lying, but that's what they've been told. I said, anything that you learn from mainstream, question. I have the boys listen, we'll listen to Alex Jones sometimes when we're driving around. They love the music, and they're like, what's he talking about, Dad? I'm like, well,
we've been listening to like, I mean, obviously like you can go down like, and again, when you talk about like conspiracy theorism, it generally tends to shift towards conservative people.
Yes,
right?
Big time.
I think capitalism, conservatism, if that's even a word, conservatism, right? lends to freedom in a sense, like let people come up with their own ideas, pay for their own medicine. You don't, it's like you don't want to take care of your diabetes, don't do your own thing. Don't tell me I have to type mentality, right? So I think like, I grew up in a pretty liberal family, right? And as I've gotten a little bit further down the rabbit hole of businesses, a couple more dollars to myself, right? You naturally tend to shift towards more conservative political ideology just because of the favoritism towards small businesses and things like that. And as a small business owner, when you see like how much money leaves your account for Social Security, workman's comp, disability and all those things, and the extra taxes that you pay for employees. Employees don't realize that stuff, right? So like, I pay you $1,000 a week as a salary, but I pay about $1,200, and that other $200 goes to the government just for having an employee, which is to me like strange because I'm the business that's hiring people. Why do I have to pay extra? So I think it's natural that you shift towards some of these conservative ideas, and maybe going along with that conservative ideas, like let me do my own thing, is hey, don't be jamming all this shit down my throat and telling me what I need to eat, what I need to, what I need to do for my health care, where I need to send my kids for school, and like a perfect example, lifetime right now is my son has a double ear infection. Real thing. Yes, he had a fever. Yes, he's sick, and that's a legitimate illness. And he definitely needed some antibiotics. Like I'm not so far down the holistic conspiracy route that like, no, we don't go to the doctors, and there's some shaman in the woods.
Sometimes you need it,
Sometimes you need that, right? And I don't disagree with any of that stuff. I think, but sometimes you need real medicine. You get to a point, right? But like the doctor's like, oh, you got to give him, you got to give him Tylenol for the fever. And I said, well, we don't give our kid Tylenol. And they got all like mad at me. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, Tylenol's poison. It's proven over and over and over again that the company that makes Tylenol, which I believe is Johnson, it's either Johnson Johnson or Bayer, I forget which one it is, right? They know that it has serious side effects in children and leads to like a huge percentage, I want to say like 40-50% increase in the likelihood of asthma as a teenager. Right? It does something to the lungs, but also we know it's terrible for your liver. Why would I give that to my kid when there's four other things? But every doctor has been conditioned to, through the medical companies and the big pharma companies to like, oh, Tylenol for kids is what you give kids for a fever. Well, what's wrong with Motrin? You got acetaminophen, Tylenol, right? Basically a poison. And you have, ibuprofen, right, which has far fewer side effects. Why wouldn't I just give my kid that, right? But like, look at you, like I'm one with 5 heads, and I'm like, why am I telling you this? You're the doctors. Like, like how the hell can I? And I know that, and like that be something that seems to be like, if you Google it right now on Google, and you Google, side effects of Tylenol on kids, you'll see all sorts of horror stories. Just switch to the other thing. But it becomes like ingrained. I think a lot of like, I think, me and you get busted, our chops get busted a lot at the masterminds because like, I'm talking about like, I'm a big hunter, prepper, I like having my prep gear and things like that. My business partner, Dan, busts my chops a lot. You're getting ready for the apocalypse. I'm like, look, it's all fun and games.
Until it happens.
I said, then what are you going to do? I said, then you're going to be, Joe. You got some food rations?
I told you,
I told you, motherfucker.
For years, man.
So I think anything that is outside the, normal societal pathways can be technically labeled as a conspiracy theorist, right? So,
even look at the term. Are you familiar when that term came out?
Conspiracy theorist?
You remember the story behind it?
No.
So they came out with that, the CIA, when JFK was assassinated, to shut down any other narrative than what they wanted. Because when people hear that, what do they think? You're crazy. You're a loon, And now it's more people talk about it, but it's still, they want to put that right in your face. Again, go back even 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago to COVID. If you question it at all, you're conspiracy theorists. Now it's like, well, if you question it, you look smart. At this point, right? So it's the ability to think outside the box and the programming to break free of that matrix of what they're telling you at school and media and all this stuff.
Well, I mean, let's get into the control mechanism, because I mean, the media is the control mechanism.
Yes.
And here we are sitting here doing a podcast, filming ourselves today, and like doing some media, right?
Yeah.
But I think we try to, I think our medium is fitness and self-development and health, right? So I think a lot of the medium that we put out, that we're using, and then the media that we put out is obviously, our intent is to help people, right? And to, give people like maybe some other pathways that they didn't know existed for themselves, right? In health and fitness and wellness and just personal development and so forth, right? But like when you see, like here's facts, right? And if my mom was sitting here, she'd be roll, like she just rolling, like yelling at me the whole time, because she gets all upset about like when I get down the rabbit hole of like big food, big pharma, and so like R.J. Reynolds cigarette company owns like the majority of some of the biggest food companies in the world. Philip Morris, another giant cigarette company. In the 80s, when these companies were getting fined billions of dollars for their Joe Camel campaigns, which were targeting toys to kids to buy cigarettes, right? So they used these amazing, it was basically, remember Monopoly game for McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
That's the same type of thing. How do we make it so enticing that we have to, I remember telling them, we got to go to McDonald's to get another, we got to go get a Happy Meal. We got to get I got to get Park Place, because if you got Park Place, you won like $1 million bucks.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody got Park Place. Right? The two blue ones on the end, right? Yeah.
It's a boardwalk
at Park Place.
Place.
Right? Nobody got Park Place. I get bored, like, I got Boardwalk. Nobody got Park Place. It was like, damn man, you go every week, right? Try and get those things. And the same thing with like Joe Camel. I didn't even smoke cigarettes, right? But we would go and buy a pack of cigarettes just to get the Camel points, right? And I'd go buy Camel. I remember trying to beg my mom and dad to switch to Camels because they smoked Winston's or some shit, right? And those two big giant companies that are masters in persuasive marketing said, like, all right, the cigarette industry is a dying industry. No matter what, we're going to be battling the health concerns of these two chemicals. People don't need cigarettes. They need food. You can't live without food, right? Unless you talk to the Panda Man.
Unless you talk to me.
Hey,
it's a great survival. I'd fasten for the apocalypse, man.
That's it.
If you have that skill.
Oh, well, I will say, like, most people would die in a week just because their head would.
Yeah, I think most people within a day if they went without a meal.
Oh, for sure.
Like most of the population.
So these two giant companies bought Nabisco, Kraft Foods, General Mills, right? I mean, the biggest companies in the world. All the Fruit Loops, the Tricks, the Tony the Tigers, that was all created by cigarette companies. Like, how do we create these enigmatic characters to attract kids to dirt cheap, sugary, low nutrient dense foods that are easy to put on tables, that could sit on shelves for years, and we create this narrative around it. And then those companies sit on the boards of a lot of the big media companies. They're also the biggest media buyers when it comes to, like, CBS, NBC, ABC, and all that shit like that. So whenever there's a Super Bowl, right, there's very few, I should say. I wouldn't say no, because I'm sure somebody could look it up and there's one or two, but there's very few like health food companies promoting during the Super Bowl. It's just too much money. Like a small Adam and Eve company or something like that makes like natural applesauce and stuff. They don't have the money to spend,
whatever, $7 million,
$7 million for 30 seconds or whatever it costs. So what do you see? Budweiser, Big Pharma, right? And fast food, big food, and so those are the companies.
That brings up a cool point too, to tie into that, kind of in the conspiracy realm too. Did you see Kanye's ad during the Super Bowl? Yeah. And he shot it from a selfie because he said, we don't have whatever, 21 million to spend, so I'm just shooting this. And it freaking blew up his sales, dude. The authenticity of it. Yes. That's such a powerful thing, man. Then you're talking about like the persuasion with the cigarette companies and into the cereal companies. We were talking before about persuasion. So you think of like Trump. So this is what I was going to tell you off camera. In 2015, I heard a clip, because I was starting to get into it because he was interested. I was always interested in Trump, and I'm like, this is interesting. I was able to see how they were attacking him. I was never really into politics. Not that I am either, I'm in for freedom, right? But Scott Adams is on Rogan, and he says, listen, he's not only going to win the primaries, he's going to be the president. Rogan's like, you're nuts, want to get out. He's like, I'm telling you. He goes, I'm a trained hypnotist, and I see that guy speak. He goes, he's the most persuasive human being we've ever seen. So
For sure.
you fast forward, right? He wrote that book, Win Bigly, because that's a Trump saying. It was about the 2016 election. And he goes over it. He's like, Trump is just dominating as far as messaging and persuasion. Then he goes, I forget what month, he's like, let's say it was around like September. He goes, all of a sudden, Hillary got on par with him. And he goes, I know what happened. He goes, very few people know what happened. He goes, she brought in Robert Cialdini, influence. And he started running her campaign. So you had the two best people in the world at Persuasion, Cialdini and Trump. So it's fascinating because people don't even know that.
Yeah,
You know, but
I
it's
didn't
really-
know that.
Yeah, it's cool, right?
Yeah, I mean, that book, I mean, I quote the laws of influence
Yeah.
every single week to my
It's-
team.
yeah.
And like, hey, and
Amazing.
we like when we do our sales review every week, it's which one of the laws of influence are we trying to execute on this week? You know, we try to. That's like part of our sales process.
No kidding.
Because it's like, you know, well, I mean, look,
I love it.
humans
Yeah.
are attracted to those things. I mean, in my opinion, I call them the laws of human influence, right? Because human psychology follows. We are herd animals. We are no matter how far me and you try to stray from the norm, right? What happens though? We gravitate towards each other.
Yeah.
We're looking for
Yes.
a tribe like us, but we're
Yeah.
still looking for a tribe.
Yeah.
Very few people are like true nomads,
Yes.
right? And want to just be fucking left
Off the
alone
grid.
forever off the
Yeah.
grid, like wearing a loincloth in the middle of the Yukon or some shit, right? Very few people want that, right? There's definitely some weirdos, but
Yeah, yeah,
they're
there's-
even weirder than us, right? And so, but like those laws of influence are, I think, like universal, right, to everything. And so, like, you know, when you run a business, or in Trump's case, a marketing campaign, if every time you walked out there to give a speech, it's like, all right, what law of influence am I trying? So let's say he's out at I don't know, he's out throwing the first pitch at a baseball game. What law of influence does that have? Likability, right? Liking, right? So here's a guy, here's just a regular guy that we could all get our, you know, hang out with. It's like, there's Uncle Don at the baseball game,
Yeah.
like, throwing the ball for everybody, right? And you try to build that likability, right? When he's, in a debate and he's, rattling off names of people who support his cause, and all these senators and or House representatives or other huge, like, billionaire business people who are behind him. It's social proof, right? And so, I think,
That's
look,
great.
I'm not a fan of Trump as a person. I think he comes off very narcissistic to me.
Do you think he's like that though, or do you think that's the way the media portrays him?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
That's a tough thing,
I
right?
think it is a tough thing. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not sitting in his kitchen
yeah.
having coffee with him in the morning to see what he's really like. Is he like, is he telling, this is the best coffee I've ever had. This is the most incredible Trump coffee. We're gonna label that Trump coffee. That's Trump. That's your Trump. America roast or whatever. You know what I mean? So I could see him. It kind of, it's like 50-50, right?
Yeah.
You could see him like completely lambasting like the help at the house and treating people like shit, or he could be
The opposite,
The opposite, yeah. I don't know. But like just what the portrayal was,
Yeah.
I thought he's very brash. But I think that's what won though, right? Like we're saying, he, no matter what he said it with incredible conviction. And I think me and you, we've talked about this before. At some point, whatever it is that you decide to do in your life, right? Whether it's be the Panda Man, be Coach Joe, the gym business owner, whatever it's whatever your path is going to be, you have to be so convicted that it's going to work, and you have to be so convicted in every and it's like, no, this is what we do. This is what I do. Like I'm Joe, the gym owner. That's what I do. I own gyms. I consult about owning gyms. I eat, sleep, shit and breathe. How do we make gyms better for everybody, right? For the owners and the people who come to them, right? The clients, right? And and that attracts people.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Right.
It does.
That attracts especially employees, right? I look at it like in the small business world, right? If we were like, I don't know, we're thinking about opening up another gym, maybe. We hope we can get to $1 million. Maybe we're going to be able to give people PTO next year. Who wants to be on that ship?
Yeah.
Right? That's like sailing. That's again, when they were sailing the Titanic across the Atlantic, nobody was like, I hope this thing makes it. They were like, this is the greatest ship. It's unsinkable, right? That didn't work out so
Yeah.
well. You know, we know how that story went.
Yeah.
Right. But the same thing. Look, I'll crash and burn in the gym. Right. I mean, like, look, I'm gonna die swinging. You
Yeah.
know, and I'm gonna. We started, you know, with a flag, and we're gonna die with the flag in our hands.
That's it.
You know, and
Yeah,
I think
full
like
cycle.
so when you look at like Trump, and I felt like you couldn't even argue against him. If you argued against him, it didn't even phase him. Didn't even phase him. You don't know. You're dumb. You're wrong. You know what you're talking
fake
about.
media.
Fake media.
He really exposed all that.
He did. So what's like your biggest, you know, what's your biggest like media conspiracy happening right now? Like what's something that like drives you fucking insane?
Well, man, right now, I've got a lot of different theories on it. I think the wars going on, I know that's not the truth. With either of those, or the one with China about to pop off, you know, the old establishment.
Well, somebody's about to make trillions.
Yes.
I mean, that's really
the old
what it comes
everything.
down to.
I think everything is, you know, like I don't even think there's going to be an election this year. At least not a normal election. I just cannot foresee everything I've studied that it's going to get to that point. You know, something's going to happen before, or it's going to be delayed.
Right.
But
To create a distraction.
Distraction, or this is where I go too. Is like, I love the concept of Trump, right? Businessman. I love the idea of an outsider. I still reserve judgment as far as maybe he's part of this. Maybe he's there to divide, right? Because he was buddies with the Clintons and all that. So I'm like, I hold back
he's
a little.
tied in with all those big businesses too.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
you
like,
don't
wait a minute.
own, you know, like 20% of New York City without, you know,
No.
scratching some backs.
No. And so it's like, okay, I'd probably tend to more like 95%. I do think he's like a chosen person to help save the world, because I think it's a one world government. It's the globalists. This is what's been going on. So you have, you know, and I think from everything I listened to, man, you have coming up this June, July, August, it's going to be, I think you're going to see chaos.
Yeah.
Like absolute chaos. Like pale, the summer of 2020, I think it's going to pale in comparison. And, you know, there's different reasons for that. And then they play the alien card, right? That's a whole thing too. But it's, if they're talking about it, it's because they're pre-programming you that they're going to use a holograph or something with the chemicals they put up there, the technology they have, like all this stuff. Right? I think it's Project Blue Beam. They can do this. And what does that do? That drives everybody. Oh, we need a one world government, one world finance. That's what they've always wanted.
Yes.
Everything's under one control.
Yes.
Right? If COVID happens again, you can't rebel. You know, now they want, you know, so they have all.
That's why they get that digital currency. They just say, "Oh, you
Shut
rebelled,
you
and
off.
just fucking hit the button."
Yeah, shut you
How
off.
scary is that shit?
Yeah, turn you off, man.
No.
People don't
Look,
think.
anybody listening to this stuff, you hold on to your dollars for dear life.
Yes.
Once they take away your money, your actual coin, the ability to, hey Kyle, I'll trade you, you know, $200 for a couple of extra bars or something like that. Your life no longer exists.
No.
You are the Matrix.
It's it, man.
Yeah,
You're done. That's why you have to have. I believe part of what might happen.
And Dan's laughing his ass off
yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, come on.
Wait, dude, it's
We're already got credit card, everything. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, but if it's the CDBC, they can track it all, right? They can still, but they can shut you off, right?
Yes.
And that's why you need gold.
I still
silver.
got you still got your old guinea stash box under the bed.
Yeah, you need it, man, because even if the financial, which I believe the financial system we know is going to come crashing down very hard.
Yeah.
Physical cash will still be useful for a period of time because people will still accept it. And then I think it'll phase if we get back to the gold standard and actual gold and silver. And this is part of the problem. When they came off the gold standard, that's when they gained complete control. It was print money, right? And then the taxes. Like I've even listened to stuff where like federal income tax is actually illegal.
Yes.
It was never designed to be this permanent thing.
No.
It was like World War I or something.
Yes.
And I know people that have, people that have fought that in courts, and I think they've won.
Yes.
But then you know they're probably coming after you then.
It's such a it's weird how, I mean, you got to go, there's literally like miles deep of layers of stuff, because it really started with the idea of central banking, of the American central bank with our founding fathers and Benjamin Franklin and so forth, right? It goes all the way back to like creating a central banking system as a way of funding building projects in major cities and government organizations, like government offices and things like that. So, all right, if we house everybody's money and we call it a safe space to keep your money, because at that point, like, you know, the Newell family or the Riggio family, we just had like a safe in our house, and we just kept like some gold and some things. And you know, back then people just had guns or whatever like that. And you protected your safe of money, right? Or you had it hidden in the basement or whatever it might be. There was no like, most people didn't go to a bank and put their money in a bank. So they created this illusion that like, hey, the bank is safe, it's got armed guards, we lock your money up every night in like an actual vault. Now, if me and you went to the bank right now, if I had a check for 100K, I write a check for 100 grand, we go to the bank right now, we go to 10 banks, I almost guarantee you that not one bank, I'm not leaving one bank today with that money, not one bank.
Dude, I went in I think it was
50
December.
grand they give me, give me and Dan, they wouldn't give us 50K.
Yeah, I went in like January or December just to get out 20 grand. And this lady lost her mind, dude. I'm like, what? She's like, I got to fill out all this paperwork. I got to make phone calls. You sure you want to do it? It was such a pain in the ass. I'm like, forget it.
You
know, so
they'll give you a cashier's check, but to get cash,
actual cash, you got to order it. It doesn't exist. It's all
doesn't exist.
It doesn't match how much we actually have in available currency.
You know, that, you know, again, the next layer of conspiracy on the financial side, right, is the idea of investing in the free market, right?
Yes.
Now, I'm not going to say that there's not people that make billions of dollars investing, but nobody who's made billions is making billions in the stock market. They're making money owning enough stocks to get dividends, to own the companies, to then buy real estate.
Yes.
To, you know,
cycle,
nobody who's a billionaire just like put their money in an S&P 500 account. That's not true. That's poor man mentality. That's, you know, who's the investor? That's like more like just save your pennies. What's his name?
Not Kiyosaki or no, Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey, right? And he's got some great validity because for the average person that makes like your average, like let's call it like $75,000 a year salary, you got a husband and wife, each make 75K. Yes, you should, you know, max out a Roth IRA. If you have if your company offers a 401K, you should definitely max that out. And that's what most people are gonna they're gonna buy a home, they're gonna pay off their home, right, at a certain amount of time. And let's just say for the sake of this argument that here in New Jersey, at the end of your tenure, that house is worth $650 if you're free and clear. And then you have another $650 to, you know, $750 in the bank in terms of investments. You're gonna take that $1.5 million, move to Florida, rent a condo, have enough money plus your Social Security to live on, right? That's going to be like, that's the vast majority of Americans, right? How people get like truly rich is, yes, they check off some of those investing boxes, but they're buying private companies, they're investing in private hedge funds. There's not one billionaire who just invests in stuff. You look at like, you know, again, like, you know, Charlie Munger and those guys, right? They own the companies. You know, they buy so much stock that they own percentages of the companies. You know, it's not just like I said, like a mutual fund. Right. Like nobody's getting rich off of mutual funds. So, again, the illusion of the financial world is that you put your money in the bank. We give you interest. We know that interest in the bank is complete shit. The fees, the banking fees, are almost always more than the interest, so you actually lose money, right? And it's kind of like human movement, right? Like there's something called in the world of money, in the world of finance, something called the velocity of money, right? Money has to be moving in order to be earning, right? You got to be moving money from earned income to investment income to real estate, you know what I'm saying? And you kind of move, money gets moved around in different, you know, mediums in a sense to grow its value, right? Because money sitting in the bank has almost no value. Your earned money gets taxed at, you know, 40 some odd percent here in New Jersey. You lose just about 50% of your money here in New Jersey, right? It might even, actually Jersey might even be a little bit more. I think I saw a percentage with like 56%. Right, like so it's insane. So for every dollar, you know, you get like, you know, 44 cents, right? Back total like cash-free money, right? Tax-free, after-tax money. So you take that money, you buy real estate with it. Now you have a tax write-off, a cash-flowing asset that you can rent, right? Depreciation, and you're paying, and somebody else is paying off an asset. Well, now you have money working for you. That's a very different thing. Those are two different things. So again, the poor man's mentality, you know, kind of rich man, poor man, is just take your money and invest it in the stock market. The rich man's mentality is take your money, invest some in the stock market, but buy cash flowing,
Yes.
you know,
Assets.
businesses and or assets, right? Like real estate or businesses, right? No businesses, nothing's going to pay you more than a business that you own and run and operate. So like most of the time when I have some extra cash, me and Dan are like, all right, let's just go open up another gym because nothing's going to
makes more sense.
Right, it
Put
makes
in the
more
market
sense.
or
Right.
something like that,
If
yeah.
I can get a 40% ROI on my gyms, if we're running about 40% profit, right, and a gym costs 150 grand to open up, right, and let's say it takes a year to get it maxed out to, we'll just use round numbers, let's say 500K with a 200K profit, right, I pay myself back in basically 18 months total investment, right? So then the goal would be that business cash flows 200 to 250,000 for a decade,
Yeah.
right? So that 150, turns into, close to 3 million over the course of a decade. Where like if you put that 150 in the bank, it would be like 160 grand at the end of a decade.
Yeah.
Right. If you put it in a mutual fund, or like now like the annuities are pretty popular right now, and the high interest savings accounts that are still running like 5 to 7% are pretty popular. Now, okay, so that 150 grand, maybe now that's 200 grand or 2.25, but it's not going to be it's not going to be 2 million. You know what I mean? You're going to have a little bit more money. So I think the biggest conspiracy of them all is the idea of money in and of itself.
And that's the control mechanism for everything.
For everything. The control mechanism of planet Earth is money. You can't go nowhere without money.
It's interesting too, because you got how they control it, and you got the natural laws, and how you said the velocity of money, and that made me think of like, the more I try to study this stuff, and money it's energy, and that's what currency, right? And think about the thing that produces, it's the best conductor is silver.
Yes.
So that's where currency comes, but it's energy, right? It's a currency going through it, and so that gets into psychology and all that. But yeah, if the financial system collapses, which I think would be obviously painful for many people, but I think it's needed, and we cannot give them back control of that system.
No.
That's the whole key.
Well, so like imagine like tomorrow they shut the button off and all your cash / credit card assets are completely frozen indefinitely. Could be, let's just say, for a year. We're going to shut the money system off for a year, right? The infrastructure of the world will collapse incredibly within days.
Yes.
Right? Because the first order effect of that is going to be like, well, if you don't have money to pay me, I'm not going to do the work, right? So like all construction, business, airplane flights, everything stops.
Screeching halt.
Yeah, right? Comes to like screeching halt, right? Then the second and third order consequences is like, all right, what are we doing for food? What are we doing for survival? And I look at it like, because of the way that money has infiltrated our society and the fact that everything now people they just say like, you want to mow your lawn? Not really, I'll just hire a landscaper. You want to, change the brakes on your truck? I could do it, but I'll just pay somebody to do it, right? And that's become kind of the way of life, right? So we just, and it's natural, especially in like New Jersey, where we just say to each other, I just make more money and I'll pay somebody to do that, right? It's like, when I get my next paycheck or when I get like my next raise, right? You hear this a lot in people, when I get my bonus, I'm going to do this, right? And it's almost always like, I'm going to pay somebody to do some work on my home or I'm going to do something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I always look at like, if the infrastructure collapses, what skills do you have that are helping you, your family, and your loved ones or your community thriving? Like, how many people do you know that can garden, like on a whim? Like if you had, like right now,
huge, man.
like right now, if like the system gets shut off and Kyle and Joe got to go plant some seeds to feed our families, do we have those basic skills?
Yeah,
right? Now, I do, right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's too many.
You know what I mean? And it's like, but most people wouldn't have a clue,
most people
right?
don't, yeah.
Can you hunt, right? Now
Fish.
again, I'm not advocating like, some people don't like hunting, they don't want to kill animals and shit like that. Well, I don't know, stop being a pussy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'll eat chicken out of a package, but you won't go hunt in the woods.
If it's been hunted.
Yeah. So again, do you have that skill, right? Do you know how to make fire? Do you know how to tie knots? Do you know how to, like, I don't know, can you build a basic, I don't know, cabinet, doorway, something, right? Like, again, I'm no carpenter, right? And I'm no, like, metallurgist or, like, you know, I can't, like, I'm not Jesse James. I can't, like, weld myself a chopper.
Yeah.
But I've used a welder. And, like, again, when the shit hits the fan, right, I'm going to figure it out. And I'll get something to stick together, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It might not be a pretty weld, right? But I'm going to get two pieces of metal to stick to each other if I needed to. You know what I mean? So I think, like, you know, on those basic level of tactical skills that humans no longer seek out at a high level anymore. Like, you know, how many men do you meet here? Like, you know, I'm going to go to welding school.
No.
It's like, you know, nobody wants to do that shit.
No.
Like, we make money so we could send our kids to, you know, nice schools, and they get further, you know, they have us, but the norm is they get further away from those things, right? It's like, oh, you know, Dad grew up mowing lawns, shoveling snow for Mrs. Hagedorn down the street. Every time it snowed, my dad would yell, "Go shovel Mrs. Hagedorn's. Oh, she's old," right? The old lady down the street, right? And you know, I learned my mom taught me how to cook. My mom taught me how to sew, right? Because, you know, my dad had passed away when I was a kid, so, like, she just taught me mom skills, right? Shit like that, right? So, but, like, all those little things, like, you know, like, they just don't exist too much anymore.
They don't.
So, you know, so money, again, going full circle, money is the control mechanism to strip humanity of the essential skills that humanity needs to not be on the system.
Yes.
And the further away we go from disassociating from those basic life skills, the more you need the system, the more you need government help, the more you need handouts, the more you need a shot. You know, now we're so much at the point where it's like, you know, you can't be a supermarket a half hour away. There's got to be one 5 minutes away. The one half, I don't feel like driving all the way down there. Right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know? So
convenience
is
crazy.
It's convenience, right?
It's all convenience.
And now the big thing, obviously, you know, is like ordering the food. Now, half the people, I don't even go to the supermarket. I order Fresh Direct most of the time. The food comes to my house.
To your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I send my sister to Trader Joe's.
Yeah. Do you have? We'll go over a few more things because we could go on forever, but we're gonna have to definitely do multiple parts.
Yeah.
Do you have food storage and all that?
Yeah, I mean, minor. Like, I'm not like I don't have like a full-blown bunker, but my wife and I have, I would say about 10 bins, like some old warm clothes and boots and things like that we keep that we could just grab. I rotate some of our bulk food, like canned food, beans, rice, pastas, things like that. I got about 50 pounds of rice that I keep. I keep a lot of salt. Keep a couple 5 or 10 pound buckets of the Redmonds. Salted big buckets.
That's gonna be a big.
That's a lifesaver.
Yeah.
You know, you'll die without the electrolytes before you'll die without the water and stuff.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. I read or I listened to. I usually don't listen to books. Can't think of what it was called, but it was about an atomic bomb that went off in Florida. You know, and chaos. But one of the biggest things to barter with was sodium, salt.
Yeah.
You know, such a hot commodity.
Super high.
Yeah.
And especially if you got young kids. Right, so if you got babies, you don't remember, like, sodium is our electrical mechanism. That's how the human body develops electrical charges, is sodium, potassium, chloride, calcium, right? Those minerals, right? The ionic minerals, right? And they're all in salt, right? All in salt. And so, like, again, if the food systems are destroyed and you're not near salty ocean where you could just get salt water, right? Which you can't drink a lot of that anyway, but you could drink a little bit of it to get some salt. And you're not growing your own food, you're not salting your food. Where are you getting your salt from? Because salt's not indigenous. Animals lick, like, rocks and stuff to get salt, right?
Yeah.
And they eat certain types of food, certain types of grasses and like, you know, like shrubblings and things that are more adapt to soaking up salt from the ground. But, like, humans don't do that. We don't lick rocks, right? So you got to get your salt, and the babies will die. You could have, like, severe cardiorespiratory issues without the electrolytes. So, yeah, man, I love that stuff. So prepping's like something that I've done for a while. Got to have some food. I look at it like, The hardest part is just getting over the first like shock wave of it. Like, so if something bad does happen, the electrical grid, you know, like you look at like Sandy, right? If you remember how bad things were during Sandy, like people were going bonkers, like the lines for gas. My wife, I was at work one day, somehow the gym never lost power, right? And my best friend was staying at my house because he had no power. So my wife and him were home, right? They went out to go somewhere. And I lived by a gas station, so literally when you pulled out of my street, the gas station was right there. One of the guys was in the gas station line, thought that they were trying to cut the gas station line. He jumps out of the car and starts banging on the windshield of some woman's car, right? Screaming at her, like profanities, fucking bitch, you're not coming, you know, I've been waiting in this line for 2 hours, like losing his mind. And you know, my best friend's like, yo, buddy, chill. Like, we live here, and we're just, you know, I'm gonna get off the line as soon as, you know, the cars get out of the way, right? And he was like, I'm sorry, you know, it's really stressful right now. Just, you know, haven't been able to get gas. The house is 100 degrees. You know, people are like losing their mind. That was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, that was like 2 weeks.
Dude, they say if, it was funny, like last Saturday here where we live out in Western Hills Road, we lost power overnight. So we got up to use the restroom. I think me and Devin around the same time, and the AC was off. Should the power went out? I said, yeah, it must have. You could hear the generators from the neighbors going off. And then, you know, I went to take a leak, and I'm coming back, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna hit my phone to check the time, and it's not gonna turn on. Now I'm thinking EMP, right? And they say in the EMP, electromagnetic pulse weapon, which they can do fairly simply. Where
I mean, they already have them for sure.
Yeah, they have them. Yeah, no doubt. They said they could even set off like these nuke bombs way up. And in that scenario, it's not like you lose power. It ain't coming back for a couple of years, if that.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like the power went out. Everything that has a battery, done.
Yes.
They said in that scenario, within 6 months, 90% of the population would be dead. Within 6 months.
Wow.
Everything would just, like you talk about the...
Yeah, because I mean, think about our world is run on electric. So what do, right? If you don't have water, if you don't live near a water source, you can't pump water, right? So that's, I mean, that's a first order, you know, consequence right there. Like, you know, food and water and shelter, right?
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, number one, you know, water. It's your food. We know you can live without for quite some time. You can go a whole month without eating if you have to, right? Water, you got a couple days. So, you know, you live in an urban area and you're not near any water and the electric goes out, you can't pump water now. Now what do you do?
Yes.
Right? You know, if you're Joe, you got a couple life straws at home.
Life straws,
to suck the water out of pumps and stuff,
Yeah.
right? And do that. But like a lot of people don't, again, you don't have that stuff.
No.
So, you know, we talked about, you know, obviously your thing is the fasting and the fitness and you know, how did food become, you know, such a conspiracy riddled, you know, weaponized, you know,
great question, man. I think it's, if you look at ancient knowledge, you look at the Bible, fasting is mentioned multiple times. You know, it's at least it's either 40 or 70 times. So I think it's something that's essential for us that's been hidden, right? So in the opposite, and what do? They feed you more frequently. Mm-hmm. What does that do to people? It keeps them like Homer Simpson, easier to control mentally and spiritually. They're not going to rebel. Keep the people fat and happy. Food is a drug. And to me, I'm like, that's such an obvious point. I don't understand why people don't see that. So if it's a drug, what are you consuming? How often are you consuming it? Right? It's having this effect. And I think, as my brothers were asking me this about a year ago, do you think it'll ever become mainstream like the fasting? I said, I don't think so, because people are just, they're hooked on their food. It's a drug and it's like a religion to people. Mm-hmm. So now it's so far gone that people will, you know, they get upset. You know, I have a lot of people all the time, every week, clients or whatever, doing great with the panda fasting. Then they'll get a relative that's 400 pounds. That's so unhealthy for you. Well, this person's type 2 diabetic. And it's like, man, it's like it's a different reality.
I've tried to tell my mom 100 times. My mom's got terrible rheumatoid arthritis. I said, Mom, if you just go carnivore. I said, we do a 2-day fast every week. You eat your last meal 4 or 5 o'clock on Sunday.
Yeah.
You don't eat till Tuesday. All right. Do a 48-hour, right, every week. I said, and we go all meat, all carnivore, 100% carnivore for 90 days. She can't do it. She cannot conceptualize that that can't be good for you. My cholesterol's going to go through the roof. I said, Mom, what's worse? I said, you can barely move.
Yeah.
You're in so much pain. I said, what's it going to hurt to try something extreme for 90 days? And I said, and what you come out the other side is you find out that it's not that extreme. Like, it's really not. It's in our head. Like, it's been a couple years now since we had our first conversation about fasting, and I've used it more and more and more as a tool. I can't get past 3 days. I think that's just my personal mental hang up. I could go from Sunday to Wednesday, no problem, right? Getting past Wednesday has been a hump, right? I think a lot of it is just emotional stress, life stress, and my stress outlet is I'm just going to make myself feel better, like a drug.
Yes.
And give myself the dopamine hit that I need, which is food for me. I don't smoke crack, and I do drink, but I never drink like during the week. Like, my stress outlet on a Wednesday isn't coming home and drinking a 6-pack. That's a bad outlet, right? Yeah. So, but I'll have a steak, you know what I mean? So I try to eat healthy, but I think that, like, someone like my mother, it's just so inconceivable that could actually be good for you.
It is.
Like, and when I start getting on her about, like, Mom, nobody's allergic to meat. There's somebody on planet Earth that has an allergy to every type of plant product on Earth. There's somebody that's allergic to nightshades. There's people that are allergic to gluten. There's people that are allergic to potatoes. There's people, Big Mike, Big Mike in my gym. Big Mike can deadlift 800 pounds. Big Mike's kryptonite are berries. He's like deathly allergic to like blackberries, raspberries. Like, so he drinks like a raspberry like fruit drink. He like swells up, his eyes get all puffed up.
Wow.
Right? He just like has like a weird allergic reaction to it. I had food allergy testing done several years ago, and I had some weird flags. My wife's Cuban, so we cook a lot of Cuban food, so a lot of sofrito, a lot of like bell peppers, right? A lot of cumin, right? Coriander, stuff like that. And two of the things that showed up as like a moderate reaction were bell peppers and cumin. And I said, oh, no shit, right? I said, that's weird. I eat that shit all the time. Like, and I never feel, you only feel what you know what you know, right? You know what you know. And like, again, your norm becomes like your everyday. Just like some people can get up and have a bagel and cream cheese 5 days a week and a giant sugary coffee, and they don't know how much that's slowing them down because they're just already slow. They don't realize if they got off of that, they'd be like, they'd go to the hyperdrive, like, holy shit, I didn't realize how much I'm drinking this giant coffee to give me energy, but it's actually sucking me dry. But the same thing, with the food, and you eat these things, and people just like, I don't know, like, again, they just, you get in this narrative that I have to have this, I have to have that, we have to eat this for lunch. And I always tell my clients that if you want to diet and you want to eat clean, the absolute best way to do it, other than not eating, is to come up with one meal that you really like and make 3 of those a day, 5 days, 6 days a week, make 24 meals, and done. And eat this, like, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I said, look, every week switch up the meal. I don't know, like, if you need that, but I said, if you just want simplicity and you want to get in shape fast, and in 4 weeks, you want to look smoking hot for the beach, right? It's going to be June 1 this weekend, right? For everybody listen, you want to get super jacked and hot, for July 4th weekend. Couple days of fasting, you got 4 weeks to go. 2 days of fasting every week, same meal eat 4 meals of the same shit, 3 meals of the same shit every day.
That's it.
Maybe have one meal, or just in Kyle's case, he would tell you to just have one really great meal a day.
Yeah.
So that makes it even easier. So you only need four meals a week, 5 meals a week.
Yeah, and you enjoy that meal.
Yeah, and they could be bigger meals. Yeah. And the one thing I've gotten from you, Kyle, from the fasting, and maybe you can elaborate on this, is something that I did want to talk to you about this. It's more of a physiological, technical question on the nutritional side. Something you talked about, I think, was nutrient availability, nutrient partitioning and availability, and so. An old adage that I've heard 100 million times in my career as a strength coach was nutrient window, right? Got post-workout window. You're going to shrink up to nothing if you don't eat right after you work out, 1. And like everybody, my whole life, I know you heard all the meatheads talking about like how much nutrients you could absorb at any one time.
Yes.
So, oh, you can only absorb 30, 40, 50 grams of protein in any one shot, right? And when I spoke to you about the fasting, I said, well, what do you do for your meal? I said, all right, so calories in, calories out, the amount of calories you eat is still kind of true in terms of how many calories you need to maintain a certain mass, right? So again, at let's say 230 pounds, I'm generally eating somewhere around 2,250 to 2,500 calories in a day, right? Usually about 230. I try to eat 1 gram per pound of body weight in terms of protein. If I'm doing the one meal a day, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm doing it wrong, I do exactly what you told me to do. I'll break the fast usually with some fruit. I'll have a nice big bowl of fruit, and that I'll get probably about half my carbohydrates from the fruit for that day.
Yeah.
So again, 2,500 calories. It's probably going to be somewhere in the range of, 200 grams of carbohydrates, 180 grams of carbohydrates, right? So again, maybe I'll take 100 of them from the fruit, have a nice sized bowl of fruit, and then the rest might be a sweet potato, white rice, something like that. Protein goal, 200 grams right there. I'll have literally a pound of steak, right? In that range, I have about four servings of steak, roughly, or more sometimes. And then if I want to have some vegetables and whatever like that, I mean, they're kind of mute in terms of calories, but you want to do some grilled zucchini or asparagus or shit like that, I'll do that. And then I try to eat in a 2-hour window, like 5:30 to 7:30 or 5 to 7 in that range. I usually try to eat at 5. I come home, I like to have dinner with Antonio, so we 5:30 is usually when he eats. Is that about right?
Yeah.
And your thought process on that nutrient partitioning is that because you fasted, you've in a sense primed your receptors to absorb that food better.
Yes. And when you're doing this over time, right, then it starts, think about the old concept of carb loading. Similar, right? Okay, you want to stock up more glycogen, let's deplete carbs for X amount of days, then we'll come back up. So when we're fasting, the glycogen gets to a certain point, it doesn't have to be bottomed out, right? We want that to happen, and then what happens hormonally, and then what I call the slingshot effect of insulin, right? So insulin is the most anabolic hormone in the body, right? So let's use it on this side to lose fat by limiting it most of the time. But when we eat, because people are like, you can't break with fruit because it's spiking your insulin. I'm like, well, first, that's not always, and I'm like, that's what you want. This is, use the anabolic effect. So your body, now everything's primed, especially I'll train in the morning, I'll eat 12 hours later.
Yeah.
Right. Some days I train, I don't eat at all.
Your body's literally fiending
it's waiting for
that
it,
injection.
It's waiting for it. And then you have this, you had that slingshot effect where you get into longer fasting, hormones might dip, but then I've seen stuff where they go threefold above baseline testosterone, growth hormone. So you have this, you're really, to me, optimizing where are those calories going. The people that are genetically blessed, these guys that are just ripped all the time, they're more insulin sensitive.
My wife.
Yeah. So they can eat, and it's more likely. When I was at Rutgers football, some of these guys were like mini Ronnie Colemans, and I would watch them all summer. I'm like, the way they trained and what they would eat wasn't, it'd be like a bowl of oatmeal with a stick of butter, a cup of sugar, and just shred it. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. And it's like they're so insulin sensitive, and that's what we want to try to set up as far as into our body is become more insulin sensitive.
So it makes total sense, and obviously, just I think talking to the listeners and so forth. Obviously, I've taught anatomy and physiology, human physiology for 20 years at Montclair State University here in New Jersey. And when you think about what insulin sensitivity is, really what that is because we overeat and we create an overproduction of insulin, the receptors in all of our cells that bind insulin as a hormone basically stop working as effectively, right? And the best analogy that I can give you is an old worn out key. Right, receptor hormone complexes in the body work like a lock and key mechanism.
Yes.
And when the key starts to wear out, it doesn't. You got to really jiggle it to get the door open. So maybe instead of so that hormone doesn't work as effectively anymore.
Yes.
It starts the key is starting to get all worn out because we've used it so much. Right. And so 4 meals a day, 3 meals a day plus snacks, right? Most people are eating breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, right? You're always hitting the blood sugar, right? So your insulin dies out. And one of the things I just read about, I have to send it to you. I can't remember where I think it was, I I was reading it. It was a journal at Montclair at the school. I was reading it at the school, and it was it might have been a journal of gastroenterology, right? I love that shit, right? Which is the other dichotomy of the gym being a meathead is I was a scientist first, but
Were you really a scientist?
yeah. I mean, I was a research scientist for that was my existence. I'm in school. My master's is in biology, but specifically in molecular physiology.
No kidding.
Cell gated mechanisms, specifically to nutrient uptake in nerve cells of the spinal cord and the brain. So we looked at like different types of concussions, different type of spinal cord stretch injuries, and how it affected the nutrient delivery.
Sure.
Right. So when you had a head injury, what nutrients affected the recovery of cells and stuff like that. And now, like, again, this is a little sidebar, but like now you look at like NFL, somebody gets a head injury, the first thing they do, glucose, sodium, potassium, chloride drips, things like that. They get those nutrients in quick because when the whole brain depolarizes from a massive hit, all those sodium electron pumps turn on and basically deplete your energy source, deplete your nutrient source. But going back to the journal, in your gut lining, right, you have all your columnar epithelial cells that make up the entire lining of your digestive tract, a specific type of epithelial cell that has a particularly absorptive ability, right? You got a single layer of them that lines your entire small intestine. So all your food nutrients, when your body digests the food, it gets broken down into the individual amino acids, sugars, and smaller fatty acids, right? Each one of those amino acids, every amino acid, all of them, and every sugar, right, fructose, maltose, galactose, glucose, right, each has a specific shuttling mechanism, an entrance door specific for that sugar. So like glucose can't go into fructose 1 and fructose can't go into sucrose, right? And there's a protein shuttling mechanism that has to open and close and then shuttle the sugar to the other side of the cell. It works very, very similarly to a hormone receptor complex in the endocrine system. Mm-hmm. And so this guy's theory on obesity was twofold. One, that obesity is partially dependent on insulin, resistance, and the fact that we know that fat cells, as we accumulate fat as a tissue itself produces hormones that make you hungry, that propensate more insulin resistance, and make you overeat more. Specifically, one called, I believe, resistin is one that makes you more insulin resistance, and your body just keeps overproducing insulin. Right? But the second part of his theory was that those receptors, those shuttling mechanisms, get worn out and overused, just like your hormone receptors do in the endocrine system. Yeah. So now you have this fast-growing, self-propensitating system of overproduction of a chemical in the body that is required for nutrient absorption and protein metabolism and anabolism, right? And then the inability to absorb nutrients, right? And so the end of his theory was that possible links to obesity, possible links to gut issues, and one of the reasons why he thinks a lot of people are having so many more gut issues today is because they're eating so much more than they need to, right? Because they're not getting the nutrients out of it. So I wonder if your theory on the nutrient partitioning is just like, again, clearing the system for, 12 to 18 hours a day, or in your case, it's like 24 usually each day.
Yeah, 6 meals a week for 5 years.
Right, exactly. 6 meals a week for 5 years, right? And look, you're jacked and strong.
Yeah.
For the average human, what I mean? Again, compared to an average dude, you're 230 pounds of muscle and fit and lean and strong. Right?
Yeah.
So the idea of how do you get that a lot from
all
clients though? Like men that want to join your system, like, dude, am I gonna get small? Like, I don't want to get weak. Am I gonna lose my muscle?
Yeah, very big concern. And the first way I address that with the guys is,
and I want to ask you a point blank question. Yeah. Can you do the fasting drug free?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like
a lot of my clients.
All right.
Yeah, a lot of my clients. Obviously, the men, I bring up the topic eventually, testosterone replacement or whatever, GH, but if I think I can help them. But a lot of them come to me and they get great results, right? And I see it all the time in here, even in the local dual strength, where the body composition completely switches, man. At the same time, right, where it's like, oh, it can't really be done, but the muscle goes up. We use the in-body, body fat keeps coming down.
Yeah.
Like, man, this doesn't. it doesn't make sense from what we've been told. But I always look at, again, just the hormones. I look at insulin or polyquin teaching me, like, that's one of your three masters, hormones. That's really the one that we could control for the most part, to a large degree. So you control that. Now, again, what are you setting up with the internal hormonal environment of the body? Right, so that's what I look at. I read a book years ago. It was really good. Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes. Did you ever read it?
No,
Really
no, I
good,
gotta
dude.
check that
He's
out.
been
Why
on
We Get
Rogan
Fat.
too. He's an investigative journalist, and it's all about insulin. And insulin is the cause of obesity.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all this. And he goes really down into it. And I was like, that makes perfect sense to me. Because even like, so your maintenance, right, is, you said 2,200 if you're tracking?
Roughly.
Yeah.
Roughly.
So even if you look at that,
I don't generally like. For like most of us back in the day when we all thought we were going to be the next Arnold, I went through a phase, probably like a 3 to 4 year period where I like measured everything that went in my mouth, weighed everything, and I probably never have to do that again because I did that. What I mean? I tell my clients though, like if you've never done that, like if you're somebody listening to this and you want to really nail down your nutrition, we talked a little bit about, fasting. We talked a little bit about eating the same meals every day and just being like a robot. Another tool, obviously, is that at some point in your life, if you want to master nutrition, you got to weigh and measure everything.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And you have to know what 200 grams of protein looks like on a scale as a piece of meat, in order to make it happen. But yeah, that's my maintenance. If I'm, if the only thing I really do differently, Kyle, is if I'm trying to like gain weight or put muscle on, is I'll add a little bit more protein, but I don't really think you need to eat more than like 230, 250 grams of protein.
Yeah, there's any reason.
I'll add more carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And I just add.
Yeah, the protein sparing macronutrients.
I'll add another like 200 grams.
Yeah.
Of white rice, or or generally it's going to be white rice. I mean, that's the easiest one to consume.
Yeah. And I think this will be kind of, I think we'll finish with this because then I have other fluoride questions.
Oh, fluoride.
Chemtrails.
Don't the whole house is fluoride free.
We'll set it up.
Fluoride
We'll set up the next one in a second.
Yeah. We'll go into the house products. I made my wife clean out of everything.
We're going to set it up with that.
She fucking lost her mind because she's like, none of these soaps fucking work. They don't clean nothing.
Dude, it's calcified the pineal gland, man. It's not good. People are like, that's bullshit. I'm like, I'm telling you, man.
Right.
Just telling you.
Clogging up your pores with a known carcinogen.
Yeah. It's all that control. It's sinister, man.
Yeah.
But if you look at, like, okay, if we're just looking at the calories again, that's why, to me, calories are the secondary factor. It's the hormones first, in my opinion. Because even like in your case, right, 230, you said you're eating basically body weight times 10, which would be your basal metabolic rate, essentially, which would put you, if we're just going off calorie equations, that should be in a relative caloric deficit.
Yes. So
you should be dropping.
When you add all my, like training, and stuff like
daily
that,
activity,
walking all the time.
So it doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, if the BMR is basically what you need to lay in the hospital bed all day, and that's what you're eating, but you're running all these businesses, it's like, okay, there's something doesn't work with that equation.
Every day.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Times,
dude, I would have to, before I started fasting to this length, Devin would always say to me, she's like, I don't understand the way you eat, the way you train. I would think you would just look like a lot different, like leaner. She wasn't saying to be mean. And I would get frustrated.
My wife said the same shit.
Yeah, it was frustrating, man. And I'm like, I follow everything. And, I'd starved myself so many times for bodybuilding that unless I was eating 1,500 calories, I couldn't get ripped.
Yeah.
And that's a miserable way to live.
Yes.
And once I started fasting, I just kept pushing my food up because I kept tracking that first summer. Kept pushing up. I'm like, oh, man, my weight's coming down. Body fat's coming down, muscle's going up, and I'm eating almost twice the amount of food.
Yeah. So
I'm like, well, how does that, so there's a lot of stuff we can go into.
Yeah, I mean, I like the, I don't know. I mean, there is some, again, I think a lot of it has to come down, it comes down to if you spike your insulin in the morning.
Yes.
The next spike is less effective. The next spike is less effective. So maybe kind of along the lines of what we were talking about with like heavy duty Mike Mentz or Dorian Yates style of training, where Dorian found out that for him specifically, the best training was one bowls out set. So he would do 2 or 3 warm up, ramp up sets, and then just one set to war, basically, to plaid, as they say in Spaceballs, right? He's gone to plaid, right?
It's Spaceballs. I was thinking of that movie the other day.
Love that movie.
That's freaking great.
And so maybe it's kind of similarly with the food. Maybe the best thing is just one good swing a day. And it's like, hey, work your ass off all day, train, get sun. I get up. I think like again, if I was going to line up my perfect habit set for the majority of humans, we get past all the mental constraints. How many people do you talk to that say, what time you get up? Usually like 4:45. Oh, fuck, that's so early. I can't do that. You already beat yourself. Why can't you do it? Like, what's the problem? I gotta get this. I gotta get that. There's really no reason. It's like, all right, well, just go to bed at 10 and get up. Like, what's this?
Yeah.
I mean, just do it, right? And I was like, you have kids? Yeah. All right. Well, what's the likelihood that you're going to work out at 6 o'clock after work when your kids got baseball, soccer, or whatever, right? Like, you want to be there for that shit, right? Okay, yeah. All right. Well, then when's the time? It's either you make the time or you don't. So as soon as I had kids, I went from a noon time every day for 25 years, right? To I'm just going to start. Let me front load my training so I don't even have to think about it. And that way, when I get to the gym from 8 to 3, I can just focus on work, and I don't have to stop in the middle of the day and go work out for 2 hours.
Yes.
I just work. So now I work out in the morning. So the perfect habit set for me is, this is my morning routine. And let's see if it passes the Panda Man test. All right. First thing in the morning. Well, after I get out of my grounded bed sheets.
Nice. Hey, that's good, man. I don't have that yet. That's good.
Got the grounded bed sheets. I just got those like 2 months ago. So I don't know if I feel a difference yet, but I've been feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
So I will see.
Good, man.
So 32 ounces of water with salt, baking soda, and creatine.
Okay.
All right. I drink about 2/3 of that right as soon as I wake up. I go downstairs. I hit the kettle on. I usually set up my coffee the night before. It's kind of the habits before the habits that make the habits happen, right?
Yeah.
And make sure all your shit's ready. It's like if you want to go to the gym, put your gym bag by the door with all your shit,
Ready to go.
Right, ready to go. And I hit the kettle. I go downstairs. I do my suburban ruck for 35 to 45 minutes. Check my email, check my to-do list for the day, check my calendar, kind of get my mind, prepped around what needs to happen that day. I go upstairs. I make myself a coffee, and I go out in the garage and lift. At that time, it's usually probably like 6:30. I get the majority of like my hard lifting in by like 7:15, and then my son comes down. He wakes up at like 7 usually most days, and then he'll come down and we'll finish a workout together. And he usually works out for me for like, it could be 15 minutes, could be a half an hour, depends, right? My wife sometimes too. We train together on the weekends, like every weekend. We do like our family fitness time, right? And then we'll train. I make everybody breakfast. Whole family gets eggs and meat every morning, eggs, meat, and fruit. If I eat, I'll eat eggs, meat, and fruit. If I don't, I'll make breakfast for them, eggs, meat, and fruit. And then off to work. I get to the gym most days by like 8:15, 8:30 if I go drop Antonio off at school. And then I don't leave my office. A lot of people, like Vince talks about it a lot, fake work. I try not to do no fake work. I don't leave for lunch. I bring my lunch with me if I'm going to have lunch. I bring all my shit with me, and I'm locked in the pain cave for 6-8 hours. I crush it. I time block everything. I work my ass off, and then I'm done for the day. And most days now, I try to be done by 3, and then it's family time till 7. I put Antonio to bed 7:30, 8, and then I usually come back downstairs. I'll do my nighttime planning, and I'll get my day set up, and that's like my 9 to 5.
Yeah.
That's like my Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
And I try to eat most of the time now. I'm eating the 1 meal a day. The only time I stray is sometimes when I have like events and I'm entertaining guests. Or like we're out with a group and everybody's having lunch. I'll get something to eat or something like that. But most of the time it's 1 meal a day.
It's working, man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like again, eating less, spending less money on food, right?
More time.
Savoring the times that we do go out for a nice meal, right? Because now it's like, all right, like because I'm conscious about it, because I'm only getting the 1 meal, I am partial to my own food. I do like eating my own shit. You know what I mean? I'm a pretty good cook.
Yeah.
And I just eat healthier too. So we'll eat most nights at home. But it also, if I know we're going to go out Saturday night for a family dinner and we're going to go to we have this favorite Italian place down the road that we go to a lot. That's probably like our go-to. It's definitely Antonio's go-to, so that makes it our go-to.
Yeah.
He loves it. We're going to go to Bosfa. I'm like, all right, pal, we're going. Wherever you want to go. Right? And I fast all day. It makes that meal so much more rewarding and enjoyable, right? And I think and guilt-free too. Where a lot of times when I know if I was sticking to my normal bodybuilder diet, and I had my breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and I already had 1,500 calories for the day, let's say, and I went off the rails a little bit for dinner, I would feel real guilty about it.
Yes.
Where now, if I fast all day and I go off the rails a little bit, right, I don't feel that bad.
No.
Right, and it's not that big. If I have the bread and the oil, it's not that big of a deal.
It's liberating.
Yeah, exactly.
It is. You know,
it is liberating.
That food prison, man. That's a huge thing of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, so people, that's a great way to put it. Food prison. I like that idea. I'm gonna come up with a graphic for that.
Yeah.
It could be my next email.
Yeah.
Give me a good one.
There you go. Good, man. Nice.
Trapped in your own food prison.
It's terrible.
Yeah. I think a big problem that people have with it is, again, media, society, right? Going out to dinner has become like an event, right? You want to go out, all these fancy restaurants. I mean, it's a trillion. That's probably restaurant business, food business is $1 trillion industry, multi-trillion, right? Overall, it's a food industry. But going out to dinner is kind of a thing. And I have clients that go out to dinner, 4 nights a week. And it's like, how do you eat healthy? Well, they don't eat healthy. That's how they do it. But I think like a lot of people have that constraint that breakfast has to be certain foods, lunch has to be certain foods, right? And then dinner has to be certain things, right? And I think like in me, because of the background in training, I learned to brown bag my food since I was 19 years old. So you get used to eating cold food. You get used to eating the same thing every day, right? I would make leftovers. I'd make food on Sunday and bring the same meal 5 days for lunch, right? Where like so many people get caught in their food prison of like, I can't eat the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't eat. My wife's family cooks fresh food every day. Spanish or Cuban. The husband's home every day. He makes like a full-blown Spanish, like Cuban dinner every day. They throw the leftovers out. And like they make like a lot sometimes, and like if somebody eats it, they throw it. They won't eat leftovers, and I said, why won't you eat leftovers? And like, oh well, I don't like to eat the same food twice, and it's like I'm like, oh, that just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, yeah.
Me neither.
Again, if you want aesthetically, like, if you're constantly searching for food, you have to like go. Where do you want to go today? Like that to me, that's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. Like if I had it every day, where do you want to go for lunch? What do you want for breakfast?
So much energy.
Oh
wasted.
my goodness.
Just trying to make the decision.
Yeah, just make it simple. That's why my wife gets mad at me sometimes because she's like, babe, you got to give him something different. Like once in a while, you got to give him something different for breakfast. I'm like, all right, well, so eggs and a banana instead of eggs and berries.
Yeah, that's it.
Why did they have something different? It's like, and I get it because he is a kid, and it's like, so some days I'll slip him something else, but it's hard. I'll give him some Greek yogurt and berries. And here's what I do though. I'll give him the Greek yogurt. I'll give him a piece of Ezekiel toast with some almond butter, right, and some fruit. And then I'll make the eggs anyway. And here's what I've noticed. I'll put the eggs out for him, and I'll just say, hey, bud, if you want an egg, there's a couple left here on the counter. Almost every time he comes and eats at least one of them.
Yeah.
Right. And so like I think like a lot of families struggle with food because they don't cook and they don't put the healthy shit out. And like what I've learned is that if you just put it out, they're gonna eat it at some point. So like if I want him to eat healthy shit, I make I call them snack-to-tree platters, right? That's what my son coined that term, so nobody can steal that. I'm gonna trademark that, snack-to-tree. It's a great idea name for like a company, like a kids food company, right? Snack-to-tree. So we make these snack-to-tree platters, right? And I might put like a couple kettle chips on there for him, but like I'll put some carrots, some celery, some fruit, a couple pieces of raw cheese, right? And I'll make like a little snack pot. I'll leave it in the kitchen. I'll leave it we got a nice big center island in the kitchen. I'll leave it there. By the end of the day, that thing's gone. If I put that out Saturday afternoon, like after lunch, whatever, I want him because that way he's not looking for junk, right? And we don't have a lot of it in the house anyway. When I put that out there, he's gonna eat that shit. When his friends come over, his little friends come over, his one little friend, Jimmy, he eats like absolute trash, right? And their family, that's what they allow. That's on them. Whatever. I don't try to parent nobody else's kids, right? I just try to instill some good habits. I put that out. He's eating the same shit too. And he's like, this is great. I wish my mom would put out more cheese and stuff. I was like, well, I said, just ask Jim. I was like, just tell her. I was like, what do you eat at home? They eat sodas, Gatorades, tons of chips, cakes, pies, and so Entenmann's on the counter every day,
Yeah.
And, I gotta like tell them like, hey, when Antonio comes over, we don't eat that shit. So please don't give him, please don't send him home 3 donuts deep because he's,
It's not gonna go very well.
Last one, you'll be proud of this, right? We're at baseball. My son's got baseball, and it's every Saturday, and every Saturday they buy donuts for the kids every Saturday. So they buy donuts for the kids. and they come around. Everybody lines up. You know, at the end of baseball, everybody slaps hands, and you do like the Congo line of handshakes, right? Slapping, and then the kids get in a line, and they come get their donut. First day, Antonio comes up to the coach, and the coach is like, "Donut, Antonio?" He's like, "Coach, I don't eat donuts. They're no good for you."
Coach probably looked at him.
And the coach looked at me, and he's like, "You can't have one donut." I was like, "It's up to him." I was like, "You want donut, bud? You can have the donut if you want." He's like, "Nah, I'm okay, Daddy. Let's go get breakfast." I was like, did my job. That's it. Brainwashing worked.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of it's just, again, it's all these habits. Fitness is a habit. Mental success is a habit.
Always.
And
everything.
I think, like, we talk about the habits before the habits. It's like, if you want to be successful in fitness, join a gym that's across the street from your house, or put shit in your house. People say, "Oh, I have no time for fitness." Well, go spend $3,000 and put some stuff in your basement, and then you have no excuse.
Yeah.
Right? But then they won't go spend. "Oh, I don't want to spend $3,000.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
know what to tell
Make
you.
a decision.
Right. You got it. Yeah, exactly. Like, during COVID, obviously I own gyms, so I never had a problem with access to the gym. But during COVID, we were doing a lot of digital filming and shit like that. And I was like, after I was done, I really didn't want to be in the gym. I was just like trying to like keep my mind separated, work, play, business, as I wanted some space. And like, my wife was working from home. So she was like, "Babe, I really, I need to work out." Like, she's like, "Going for walks is great, but like, I need to train." Like, my wife likes to lift weights. My wife likes to do a lot of calisthenics and shit. So she's like, "I need some stuff to train with." She's like, "Can you bring me home some gear?" So I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna do one better than that. Let me just build out like a really nice garage gym and spend a couple bucks and do it." Right. And then, so that's what I did. And I did procure a bunch of shit from the gym, but I bought a bunch of shit. And now we have a dope setup in the gym, like real training stuff, rack, glute ham, sleds, everything. Right?
Nice.
I got it all, right? There's zero excuse for anybody in my house to not work out. There's no excuse. There's none. So my wife and I train every day, and our son sees us train every day, and he trains every day. Whether he does 5 minutes, he does 25, 30 push-ups, or he does, like we call it, our 15-minute family fitness. If he does the routine, which we got like a little routine on the board for him. He either does the routine or he does a part of it, but he does something every day. And that's just part of our culture in a sense, but we set that habit up. Anybody could do that. I didn't spend a shit ton of money. It's not like I didn't spend Joe Rogan money and build out like a $150,000 gym or something like that. I only got the Mark Bell, palace with all the, $200,000 in equipment.
Yeah.
Most people get away with a bench, dumbbells up to 50 pounds, a couple med balls and bands, and you'd have more than enough to train. They just don't do it. People always look for this magic, like there's going to be this magic fix, like, "Oh, when I get to this, I'll do this" type of mentality.
Yeah.
So
it's at the end of the rainbow, man. Well, this is great.
Awesome.
So let's do this. Before we leave them hanging for the next one, tell people where they can find you. They'll be seeing you obviously all over, but where can they find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you all that?
Best place to get in touch with me is on Instagram. That's just Coach Joe Strong. The business is Varsity House, and the consulting company is the Business of Strength. We're all on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. Wherever you're looking for stuff, you find Coach Joe Strong, and you'll find our variety of brands in the fitness space. Yeah,
and guys, these guys are top notch. Like, just great dudes, Joe and Dan, and great business owners, great family men, great, just successful people. Last one we'll leave them hanging with. This is what we'll start the next one with. What is a bigger concern, the chemtrails or the fluoride in the water?
I think long term, I think it's pretty acceptable now that fluoride is bad for you, and that's a super easy fix. Like, you just get that shit out of your house. I don't drink tap water, and I don't use any fluoride products in my home, but I can control that. I can't control what they're putting in the sky.
Too bad we don't have one, man. Usually we'll have one up there.
I know he's not listening, but I got to tell it. But shout out to my guy JP. I got a friend of mine who lives right across the street from me, JP. And a couple weeks ago, he had me going bad, and he knows I'm a conspiracy guy too. He'd be sitting right here, number 3. He's way down the rabbit hole. Him and his wife are.
Yeah, next time we're gonna get to the next
they're way down the rabbit hole, right? And but he got me onto the chemtrails, and I was literally all day like taking pictures of them and sending them to him. He's like, "Bro, he's like, they know you're watching."
Oh yeah.
He's like, they're taking pictures of you, taking pictures of them.
Yeah.
I was like, I throw my phone. So so the chemtrails for sure. The chemtrails for sure.
Chemtrails. So that's how we're gonna start the next one, bro.
Nice, man.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
That was
cool. That was great.